Okay, good morning. We'll start off with our class this morning by trying to carry out revision of our NECO BECE exams, and we'll start with the concept of bearing and distance. Essentially, this class is dedicated to solving problems. So we will start by looking at question 1 or question 53 from 2021 paper 1. So to be 2021 paper 1, question 53. Subsequently, I'll be using coded language to write this. Anytime you see P, it will be paper. And anytime you see Q, it will be what? Question. Alright, it says a boy starts. So you may want to pick up your NECO BECE, the Laswell textbook. You want to pick up your Laswell textbook, the latest edition for this exercise. So we are currently looking at 2021 paper 1, question 53. And it's important to understand how the exam is arranged. The exam is arranged such that paper 2 essentially talks about algebra. Paper 1 essentially focuses on arithmetic and a bit of majoration. So when answering questions or preparing for this exam, you must know the areas that are tagged to the different papers so that you know what questions to expect from that. So this is the textbook we'll be using, or the compilation we'll be using. You can also do well by maybe using your question paper. If you have the live question papers, you can also use them. Some of these questions you can actually download online. The question says a boy starts from a point A and walks 4 kilometers due east. You must have a sound knowledge of your cardinal points to another point, what? B. He then changes direction and moves 3 kilometers due north to a point due north towards C. It says find the distance of C from A. Find the distance from C from A. So when you're answering questions in the hall, read the question once first before you make any attempt. Oftentimes students just feel they know the question and they just go into answer. No. Sometimes you might do that and you may read the question wrongly, and once you don't understand the question, obviously you have failed the question. A boy starts from a point A. So let's try to present that on the board. Moves 4 kilometers due east. East will be this direction. So 4 kilometers to a point B. He then changes direction and moves what? 3 kilometers north. The movement was from where? B. And that is what? C. So this is 3 kilometers. Now, this question is testing your knowledge of cardinal points. We have established before that this angle, if you have your cardinal point arrangement, all the angles are what? 90 degrees. This is east, this is north, this is west, and this is what? South. You must remember this. Now, it says you find the distance of C from A. Now, this is a right angle triangle. It may be bearing, but they are teasing your knowledge of what? Pythagoras. So this is 4, this is 3, and this is the what? The part we are going to get. Somebody had just said 5, and that is correct. So you see that because you had a background knowledge, you don't need to solve. This is OBJ. You don't need to solve. Really solve overly. Because there's something you were taught. It's called Pythagoras triplets. There's something called Pythagoras triplet. If I have a right angle triangle, I see 3. I see 4. The last one must be 5. If in the exam too, I see 5, I see 12, the next one must be what? 13. So that's the Pythagoras what? Triplets. Or some books we call it triples. This is the concept being teased here. Once you know this and this, without solving, you know this will be the answer 5. But let's assume you're not very sure. The rule says that to get AC, the square of AC must be equal to adding this, the square of this with the square of what? This. And that will give me 9 plus 16. And that will give me 25. So AC will be equal to the square root of what? 25. And that will be what? 5 kilometers. So that answer becomes what? 5 kilometers. And you see that is a very straightforward problem. That becomes what? 5 kilometers. So that settles that question. So in question 54, it says, of that same year, so I said I'm going to be using my coding now, so it will be 2021, P1, meaning paper 1, Q54, meaning what? Question 54. It says, one of the following is a compass bearing of 225 degrees. Now, remember that there are two systems we use. All of them are measured with respect to a due north position. This will be 90, this will be 180, this will be what? 270. Back to what? 360. Now, they said you should find the compass bearing. What is compass bearing? Compass bearing takes into consideration north, east, west, and what? South. This is what the compass bearing is talking about. And for compass bearing, we measure with respect to two different axes. We measure with respect to a north or a south. So you can have south moving towards east, south moving towards west, north moving towards west, north moving towards east. I've covered this, I've done extensive videos on this, so I wouldn't go into details. So if you want to have more understanding of this, just go to my playlist and get more information on this. But what you need to understand now is this. 225 will lie between this and this. So 225 must be somewhere around here. So what must I add to 180 to get to 225? I can do subtraction. And if I do that correctly, I'm going to have 45 degrees. Now remember, if you remember your compass bearing very well, this position is northeast. This position is southwest. This position is what? Southeast. This position is what? Northwest. And all of these divisions are exactly at point 45 degrees. So if this is 90 degrees, this will be 45, this will be 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, and 45. So if you have that understanding, it means that what I'm looking for is actually what? South, 45 degrees, what? Moving towards your west. It is west, south moving towards west. That's what it means, south, 45 degrees, moving towards your west. So that's settled. That's settled. We have taken care of that question. And that answer is what? South, 45 degrees, west. So that's the answer for that, or to that question. Moving in the same light, we have another one. 2021, paper 1, question 55. Question 55. It says the bearing of A from B. The bearing of A from B. The bearing of A from B. Now, it's important to note when you're told bearing of something from something, it means that the reference is the second letter you're seeing. The question says the bearing of A from B. It will mean that the reference is what? B. So you're going to draw B first. The bearing of A from B. This point will now be B. Is what? 0, 6, 9. So it means that if this is in my local position, it's using 3 figure bearing. Anytime you see the angles given in 3 degrees, it means it's using what? 3-figure bearing. So from here, this will be what? 90 degrees, or what you may call 090. Coming in this direction. So what you have will now be what? 69 will be somewhere here. So that means to this position, it will be what? 069 degrees. Now this is B and this is what? A. Now the question says, find the bearing of B from A. If you're going to now find a bearing with respect to A now, this becomes your reference position. How do you measure? You must start from here and move round like this. Remember that at this position it is 090. At this position it is 180. So what is this one? Remember that from your knowledge of alternate angles or angles between parallel lines, if this is 069, this angle will also be what? 69 degrees. Alternate angles. This line parallel to this line. So if this angle is 69 degrees, this angle becomes 69 degrees. So the bearing of B from A will simply be what? Adding 69 to what? 180. And if you do your addition well, that will be 249 degrees. So that answer becomes what? 249 degrees. We go to 2020. 2020. We go to 2020 and we need to write this answer up a little more because my screen don't discover my screen didn't cover that. Alright, so just for purpose of clarity. So we'll go to 2020. 2020 paper 1. So you will discover that you now know that these questions you will see them in what? Paper 1. Question 55. And also, as you revise this question, take note of the region where these questions can likely occur. Discover that this one has occurred within the region 53, 54, and thereabout. Okay, question 16. So, you discover also that in that exam, 2021, we had 3 questions. 3 questions on bearing and distances. These are little things you must take note of. 3 questions. So, I know going to the examination hall that I'm expecting at the most 3 questions from bearing. And I must not fail them. Right, so question 16 says, the surveyor bearing of 300 degrees is equivalent to a compass bearing. So here we see something very interesting. And this is how you need to remember. 2 types of bearing. Maybe you may want to note that. There's what is called surveyor bearing. And that surveyor bearing is what is tagged your 3-figure bearing. So if you hear surveyor bearing, make sure you're writing. If you hear surveyor bearing, it's the same thing as what? 3-figure bearing. You also have another one, which we call the compass. The compass bearing is the one that talks about north, east, west, south, northeast, and co. So, what the question requires you to do is to convert this surveyor bearing, which is 3-figure bearing, to compass bearing, which is like saying what? In terms of north, east, south, and west. So, what you simply do is to draw this. For a surveyor bearing or 3-figure bearing, we start from north and we read in a clockwise direction. So this will be 090, this will be 180, this will be 270. I know why I'm doing this. I'm repeating this so that you remember. And with that done, You are told 300. So 300 will occur between this point and 360. So what do you do? How many will take me to what? 270. I mean 300. It is what? 30. And this will be what? 60. Why? Because this angle is what? 90 degrees. But remember that we said that for what do you call it now? For compass bearing, we have two reference points. We have the north and we have the south. So if you look at this is mirroring that in here. This is east, this is south, this is west, and this is north. So it will be what? North, move 60 degrees towards what? West. So 300 degrees will now be what? This is 300. This way you have the 300 degrees mark. This one is 300 degrees. So it will be north, 60 degrees west. Now somebody might say, why are we not measuring from here? It means you missed the idea initially. We said that for a compass bearing, the reference point is the north and the south. So when you're reading, you read like this. Or you read like this. So if I'm going to get to 300, I would have moved 60 degrees towards what? 300. And that's why the answer is not 60 degrees west. Now let's look at question that same year. Question 17. It says, what is the bearing of B from A? What is the bearing of B from A in the figure below? Now let's draw that figure. Some of these questions you don't even need to write so much. What is the bearing of B from A? Now, what is the bearing of B from what? A. This one is even very simple. What they are saying is, what is this angle? Bearing of B from A means measure the angle on A. And how do you measure the angle? You start from the north, read what? Downwards. So if this angle is 25 degrees, remember that you have been told that angle on the straight line is what? 180 degrees. So you say the bearing of B from A will be equal to 180 minus 25. And that will be 155 degrees. This is OBJ, so you don't even need to write so much. Once you understand the question, you will know what to do. Alright, so that takes care of that. Question. So let's copy that. Let's go to question. That's 2020 using my coding system, paper 1. Question 18. Now look at the diagram you're given. All of these diagrams you can find in your concepts like this, you can find in your new general mathematics. Now you are told that from here to here is 220. So this is, they call this N1, they call this N2, if my diagram is right. They call this point A, they call this point B. Now, I think the question says you should find, because the one who did this compilation for us didn't specify what the question was supposed to be. Okay, the question requires us to calculate the bearing of B from A. B from A, which means this is the reference, this is the angle they want us to calculate. This one is very simple. In handling this, you need to remember your concept of alternate angles. So, if I drop this down, remember that this point at this very marker is what? 180 degrees. So if I remove 180 from 220, I'm going to have that this angle here will be what? 40 degrees. By concept of alternate angles, this angle becomes what? 40 degrees. So the bearing of B from A Bearing of B from A means measure the angle on A will be what? 40 degrees. And that settles that question. So let's go to the next one. Still on that same stuff. We go to 2019, paper 1, Q 44. Let's look at this. The same diagram, same kind of diagram. There is no way you will go through all of these questions and not be able to answer the questions in the examination hall. Here, I thought this is what? 58. If you see a pattern, what's the pattern? This year, they gave this one. By the next year, same pattern, but they change the arrangement. Let's confirm if what I'm thinking is right. This is R, this is S, this is not, N means not. Now, we are told to find the bearing of S from arrow. Can you imagine? So, in this one, now, all you need to do is to drop this one. Alternate angles, this angle becomes what? 58. This point is what? 180 degrees. So, the bearing of what? S from R of S from R will now be what? Read from here to this point. And the implication will be add 180 to what? 58. So that will be 180 plus 58. Please always add in this pattern. Go back to your primary school and add like this. This way you will not make a mistake. Okay, I've just been corrected that angle is 53. Please, let's make that correction. It's 53 degrees. That angle is what? 53 degrees. And understand that while we do all of these, the values really don't matter. The idea, the concepts, ensure that you are getting the concept right. So this becomes what? 233. Is that? 233 degrees. 233 degrees. So the bearing of S from arrow is what? 233 degrees. Now let's look at another interesting one. That same year, question 47. Now this is what you have. This is Q, this is P, and this is not. Let me to draw this too long. This is not. Right? You are told to say what is the bearing of P from Q. This one is a very cheap question. P from Q means that take the angle on Q. So just notice your knot and roll the thing till you get to this point. Remember, then you can do an extension out. This is what? 90. 180. This one, because this is 90 degrees, this will be what? 270. So the answer is what? 270. So the bearing of P from Q equal to what? 270 degrees. That's it. So you see that this question, if you know what to do in less than 1 minute, you are cleared. 1 minute max, you're cleared with them. Right? Okay, so let's go to the next one. And if you watch the pattern now, okay, there's yet another one. Let's clean off. Okay, so we go to 2029. She was still there. No, we're still on 2019. We still have a question there. So people are wondering, 2029. But that is of you that blame the university. Alright, question 52. This year they were very wonderful. They spaced the questions. They spaced them after every 3 or 5 questions. They gave 44, went to 47, they went to 52. These are patterns you study as a student. Success is a very predictable outcome. You study this pattern. It's a pattern. Alright, can we bring it down? Okay, it says the bearing of A from B is what? 0, 3, 0. That is what? Surveyor's bearing. So what you need to do now is the angle is on where? A. From where? That's where it's on. 30. So what? B. What is the bearing of A from B? Look at this. Watch, please. That's it. Alternate angles. This angle will be what? 30. This is what? 180. So what is the bearing of A from B will be equal to 180 plus 30. And that will be what? 210. Are we seeing that? Beautiful. So you see that there's no work. The answers are predictable. You can just look at it and tell what it is. That's it. I've done that one. Alright. So we go to 2018. 2018, they just had 2 questions that year. But it's like more recently they're giving us what? 3 questions per the exam. Right? So let's go to 2018. So 2018, paper 1, question 26. Question 26. It says, if the bearing of P from Q is 300, this is a question that, if you remember, they said this question in, look at that very well. We've answered this question before. Look at 2020 question 16. They just changed the narrative, what they wanted you to do. But this 300 degrees is still there. They told you to convert this to what? Compass bearing. But here, they are using it to handle question properly now. So, let's look at this. It says, what is the bearing of, if the bearing of P from Q is 300, Q becomes a reference. It's what? 300. Now, 300 will be this way. So, you draw the diagram on your right. Not 90, 180, 270. 300 will be the what? 270 and what? 300. So, it's going up, so I may draw it down. So, that will be 0, 90, 180, 270. So that will be somewhere here. If I add 30 to that, I'll get my 300. So this will be 30. Now, this point will be Q. The bearing of P from Q is that. What is the bearing of Q from P? Q from P to be reading, this is not, read like this. If this is 30, this will be 30. Add 30 to 90, that will be what? 120. So what do? Bearing of Q from P will be equal to 90 plus 30. And that will be equal to what? 120 degrees. Now, somebody else can do something different. Another student can say, if this is, I know this will be 30, I can simply say that this is what? 60. So I remove 60 from 180. You still get the same answer. The reason I'm doing this is this. In an exam setup, sometimes it may be very difficult for you to think like the teacher. So that's why you need to understand what you're doing. Understand what you're doing. All the while I've taught you, I've never taught you that you must stay on my method. No. I allow you in the examination, as much as you can remember, to use the method that you can remember. Right? So in that same year, question 27, it says, here it is again, see something very interesting. If we go by pattern, in 2018, they set this question. Now, in 2020, they set this question. So, if I go by pattern, this year, you must have this kind of question. See what the question says. Convert the surveyor bearing of 145 degrees to compass bearing. Every 2 years, they set that question. So what do you need to do now? You need to go back and revise this one. Because it's not just for us to solve. I'm also trying to show you and see, take you through patterns. There are patterns. Success is predictable. So, it says convert what? 145 degrees surveyor bearing to what? Compass bearing. So how do you do that? You draw your cardinal points. North, south, east, west. Where would you have 145 degrees? It will be 90. This is 90. This is 180. So 145 will be between 90 and what? 180. So 145 minus 90 is what? 55. So which means I will move 55 into this place. Are you seeing that? And if this is 55, it means that I'll be left with what? 35. 35 plus 55 will give me what? 90. So this is south. This will be what? Going towards what? East. So the answer will be south, 35 degrees east. Please don't use this angle. Do not what? Use this angle. Another method you can use, another method I can suggest for you to use is this. They said 145 degrees, is that not? 145 degrees will be between what? Here and here. So I can just draw this arrow out and say the whole of this angle is what? 145 degrees. Are we together? Now, if this point is 180, remove 145 from 180, what do you get? 180 minus 145. You discover that is what? 35. So this means that this angle here will be what? 35 degrees. So it means what? The answer is what? South, 35 degrees, going towards east. South, 35 degrees, going towards east. So please, take note of this question. So if I were you, if we go by the pattern of revision, I would advise you now, go back, let's listen, go back and revise 2018 and 2020 past question paper. It might be it, might not be it, but we are seeing a pattern. Maybe by the time we solve other questions, we will see whether there's a pattern. And if this is a pattern, and because the exam has already been set and you cannot go back, our advice, go back to solve 2018 and 2020 past question papers. Solve it, know it, and see whether we will not have repetition. Although we'll draw more conclusion on that later. So that's for that question. So we'll go to 2017. 2017. Paper 1, question what? That year we have it on question 39. Please confirm. A school P is what? 16 kilometers due west of the school. Okay, a school P is what? Due west of a school Q. Is that not? Now, let's look at this very well. Look at it. If you see this, when you read this question, you may think maybe it's trying to confuse you. No, it's a very simple question. A school is what? P. And it's west of Q. So it means it is Q you must draw first. And this is P. So this is Q, this will be west, and this is 16 kilometers. Please, this one is a distraction. This figure is a distraction. Now, when you're solving questions in the exam, you need to be careful about distracting information. What is the bearing of Q from P? What is the bearing of Q from P? Now look at this. All they want to do is to drop your north position on P and read this way. And that answer is 90 degrees. A school P is due west of Q. That means the reference point is on Q. West, north, east, south. Are we together? Now, having done this, they are now told to find the bearing of Q from P. That is this angle. This angle. In fact, I will employ you to go back to watch my videos. I have 3 videos on bearing, 3 or 4 videos on bearing. If you watch it thoroughly, there is nothing in those videos. Everything you need to know in bearing is covered in that video. You can't watch that video and have issues with bearing, because everything is covered to the letter. So that's that. So the answer is what? Bearing of P, of Q from P is what? 90 degrees. We can also say that the bearing of Q from P is what? East. Do you remember that? It's east. Is it not? Where is Q with respect to P? East. Where is P with respect to Q? West. So if you have east, west, it's going to be. Now, on the flip side, if you are looking for the bearing of P, of Q, or rather the bearing of P from Q, it will be what? 270 degrees. 270 degrees. 270. If you're looking for that, but that's not what we're told to look for. We're told to look for the bearing of Q from P. So that will be what? 90 degrees. So that takes care of that question. We have just one more question to go. Now that question says 42. I think it should be question 42. It says, which of the following is equivalent to south 56 degrees west? Now the first thing you need to do is to draw what it is. South. This is south. This is west. You don't need to label everything. All you need to identify is what? Your south and your west. I think I'm going out of south and your west. 56 degrees south. South, 56 degrees west. So it means that this angle is what? 56 degrees. This will be my north. Now, they say, which of these is the equivalent? What they have told you tactically there is to find the surveyor's bearing or the 3-figure bearing. So sometimes they may not tell you directly. Once you hear the word, what is the equivalent bearing? It means they want you to convert from surveyor to compass or compass to what? Take note of it. What's another word for surveyor? 3-figure. Then compass, then the next one will be compass bearing, which is another type. Please take note of this. Know and be sure of what you are doing. So, we will read this way. To this point, we'll end here. To this point is what? 180 degrees. 180 plus 56. 236. If you remember well, we had done one where we added 180 to 53. How many of us remember that question? Are you seeing how you revise and prepare for the exam now? Because I've solved it, my mind has connected. And there was a question like that. Let's go back and see where that question was. What year was that? 29. Are you seeing a pattern? So, I can safely say, with this little deduction, at least for bearing, that if I want to exactly predict the question for bearing, I solve even years. So if I were you, when I get back to the hostel, all the years, all the question papers that are even years, I go and solve them. That's how you pass. Success is very easy. Right? So this will be the answer. Conversion of this, the equivalent of this bearing to this one is what? 236 degrees. Are we good? Yes. So with that, we are through with our revision on bearing, and then we'll move to another concept.